Okay, everyone, let's get started working on the cover. So I want to tell you, this album took a lot of paper. So when I actually went to design the cover, I realized I didn't have very many 12 by 12 intact sheets remaining. So I'm actually going to do some color blocking on the back side to resolve that. I am using this from the Patterns and Solids, and then the accompanying color block papers are also coming from the Patterns and Solids. So you will have enough paper, but you do need to be cautious. You're not going to have a lot of leftover. So what I have intact right now at the end of the album before doing my inserts are these three 12 by 12s. And I have a handful, I have a fair amount of 8 by 8s left, but because the album cover is 8.5, you really need to be working off 12 by 12 sheets. Or you're going to have a very, very large border, which I just don't like. So that is that. So we're going to start with this. And this just happened to be a piece that I had left. I'll tell you what it is. It's 9 3/8. 9 3/8 by 8 3/8. That's just happened to be the size. I'm going to do a wrap spine with this paper, and it is 8 by 8 3/8. 8 by 8 3/8. 8 inches across. And then I've just soft scored the sides. It's going to wrap. I'm going to put tape on the back of that, but right now let's go ahead and just get this piece in. And then we'll get the spine wrapped, and then we'll have to trim and color block the other two pieces that are going to cover the back side of the album. I just opened my album to make sure it was one right side up, and also that this is page 1 and not page 8. I have done that before, forgot to look inside and glued my cover onto the back instead of the front. And in this case, they are very different, so it would matter a lot. Sometimes they look similar, so it's not that big of a deal. And it's especially not a big deal when it's a pattern like this where it's not really directional. But it's always just a good habit to be in. Check. Always checking the orientation of your book. Oh, shoot. Shoot. I need to stop. I forgot. I am going to do something different with this album. So sorry about that. I'm going to have to back up. I need to let this dry. We're going to cover the back first. And the reason is I'm going to put a magnet in here. I'm actually going to use a large tag that's going to get installed on the back and wrap around, and it's going to have a closure right here. Actually, since I can actually do this right now. I take that back. We're going to do it right now since I've already folded and I know roughly where it's going to be. I'm actually going to use 2 magnets because I want it to have a strong hold, and I want it to actually hold the cover up so that the book is flat, like so. When I say flat, what I mean is that it doesn't collapse down on itself. Okay, so I'm going to center the tag, and I'm gonna put a cheat mark, and here it is. I was gonna say, as soon as I find my ruler. So let's find the center line. Should be 4 1/4, 4 1/4. There's my center line. And then I'll find the center line of my tag. Right about here. Actually, I need to do that one more time. Okay, I gotta think about this for a second. I'm trying to decide, I'm stalling because I'm trying to decide if I want to line this before I put it in or after. And I think I want to do it before. So now I got to think about this a little bit more. Sorry about that. I had completely forgotten that I was going to install that. So now real quickly, I'm going to lay this out because I have two options. I have a green or a red, and I'm trying to decide which color I want to lay over the top. So I'm going to lay in some of my elements real quick and then get a visual on it. And again, this is from the large tag. And I used a large tag just because it wraps all the way around nicely. Inside the book, I've got some regular tags. So the reason I'm laying this all in is I want to make a decision on the color for the tag. And then also, I know this is upside down, but that's okay. I'm just trying to get a visual. And then also, what is the other thing I want to do? I guess decide the location of the tag. Do I really want it centered or do I want it off center? Okay. So this is currently the plan. I need to get that to stay for the moment. Okay, there we go. I needed more hands. Okay, I fussy cut this off the signature page. And then this is the second one, so it's going to be layered like so, which I think is kind of interesting. So that's what it looks like with red, green. I think I like the red. And then I've fussy cut some other elements that I'm going to incorporate. So I am going to go with the red. So now that we've made that decision, to set this aside, let's cover the tag. Let's start by covering the tag. And I am going to glue this piece, and then I'm going to slightly bend it and then glue the balance because I know it needs to be somewhat flexible. And I want to kind of work it into that score line because I don't want my red paper to crack. Okay, looking good. Also, when you go to add your soft score lines, it's going to tug on the paper too. So you don't want to burnish your glue into place until you've worked in your folds. Hopefully that makes sense. Ding dong. I forgot to ink my edges. I hate it when I do that. But it's actually not so bad. It's not as white. Sometimes, some of them, the core looks so white. It's so obvious. Okay, now I'm going to burnish this. Maybe. I don't know what I did with my tool. Put this stuff back over here. A little housekeeping. I can't find my... Here it is. Here it is. Okay, so that is in. So now I also want to put something on this side. And I'm going to use my green, the green one that I had trimmed out earlier. But I can't because it's upside down. because I trimmed them both to go the same way. It's upside down. So I could do the green this way, but I don't really like that. So let's see. What other choices do I have? Sorry about that, guys. I could do black. Not crazy about that either. Well, what do you... I just don't... I'm going to pull them in. I just don't have a whole... Oh, you know what? I've got 8x8s. Let's look at those. Let's see. I don't have a whole lot of 12x12s, but I really don't need a 12x12. I don't think I use this pattern anywhere in the book. It just doesn't seem to go with it. They have this sort of real life Santa, and then they've got this vintage looking Santa. I don't know, they just don't go together for me. Oh, you know what? I've got this red, yeah, ooh. And you know what? Let's see if it is gonna fit. Oh, you know what? It's too short. That's why I have so few choices, is it's too short. But it's okay, because this is the inside and this is actually going to be glued to the book, so I really only need that much. Okay, I feel better now. I just had to talk myself through it. Okay, I'm going to pause because I got to pull in my die cut machine and all that nonsense, so I'll be back in a few minutes. Hey everyone, I'm back. Sorry about all that rambling in the last few minutes, but I just hadn't thought it through. I don't often use a fastener on the top, so that kind of threw me for a loop. Now, I know I want to have 2 magnets on here. Oops. And I just smashed one. They're so strong when they're strong but brittle. Okay. So this is gonna reach over the front of the album and sort of lock it into place. I don't know what I was thinking. Why did I do that? It needs to be big enough to cover both. That should do it. There we go. Okay, that is in. And then, of course, I've got the reindeer on one side. And I'm checking, keep checking to make sure you're putting things in the right orientation. So this is going to go in like so. And I did remember to ink this one, even though I forgot the top one. Okay. So I get, it's very easy to get mixed up on orientation for your tag. So it's best to try to lay it down the way it's going to be installed. Because like I've done with the green one, the hole was on the wrong side. And so if I turned it around, then of course the pattern is upside down. So make sure you're taking a good look at that before you run it through your die machine and use your paper. And in this case, I really can't flip it because both sides have a strong orientation. So, and I know it doesn't cover the whole tag, and that's okay, because the bottom part of the tag is I didn't want to slide. The bottom part of the tag is actually going to be glued to the back cover, so you won't see it. I need some more glue on that. It's just not wanting to move. I'm struggling because I put those score lines in the tag, so the tag wants to jump up at the paper and grab before I'm ready. That's just not wanting to go in very straight. I'm just going to have to live with it. So This is a little bit of a frustration for me because I am so particular about borders. And as you can see, this is much wider than this. And the reason that I couldn't get it straight is because the grommet is not straight on the tag. So if I get the tag on around the hole, then it's not right down here, and that drives me crazy. But that is just the way it is with the Graphic 45 tags. I don't think most people care that much about it, but it drives me nuts. So it's just something to be aware of. And I think it would look funnier to have the grommet the paper offset on the grommet than it does to have this border that's not quite the same. All right, now I'm just going over where my score lines were earlier, just softly. It needs to fold over on itself. And it's pretty rigid, so it'll make for a nice closure. And I'm working it slowly because I don't want my I don't want the outside to crack. There's no risk of it cracking on the inside, but you have to worry about it buckling on the inside. Okay, now in general, it's only going to need to be 90 degrees. See, and there's a buckle. So just be aware of that and look for it as you're burnishing things into place. I might actually have to squeeze some more glue in there. No, I think it's going to lay down. Part of the reason it buckled there is because the two magnets are here. All right, how's that looking? It's looking pretty good, I think. Okay, so this is the part, now I'm going to pull this back in. So this is the part that's going to be glued to the back of the book. And it's going to look like this. And I'm actually going to have this be on top of the cover. Let me show you what I've got. I mean, your option is to do this or this. And I want to do this because I think that when you open and close the book, there's an opportunity for that part of the hinge to pull on this paper. So I'm going to do it this way so that there's no risk of this paper tearing. So that's the logic behind that design decision. Okay, so now the next thing I need to do is, oh my gosh, I hope it didn't, I laid it back down and the glue was still wet. And I cannot afford to lose this piece of paper because I don't have anything else. Shoot. I didn't get it on straight. I thought my glue was dry. It was supposed to just be resting. Okay, it's coming up. Oh my gosh, panic. Look, I just tore one small piece. So we're going to be fine. I made a mess of my paper. But the reason I pulled it up is because we still have to put our magnets here. Okay, so let's flip it over and go ahead, and I want to get the back piece installed so that I can apply this, and then I'll locate my magnets. So what am I doing? This is gonna wrap like that. Yep. And this is gonna go on the edge, and this is gonna go in between, I think is what I had planned. And then this will be the back. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So I'm gonna trim this. I guess I need to make sure I've got enough paper. I am gonna have a little black band between each one of these. Okay. I'm getting nervous about trimming paper because I can't afford to make any mistakes. So I'm just going to take off a tiny sliver on this yellow one because there's a there was just a little bit of a white line where the header on the paper was. So I did that. Let's make sure it's, yeah, okay. I was just looking for the height. It looks good. We'll ink this, get this down, then we'll add the closure. And then we can put the top mat down. So sorry. I really feel like I'm fumbling around today. I don't know what my deal is. I think I'm feeling a little anxious because this is late. It should have been done Friday. And I don't know about y'all, but I find that it's very hard to operate creatively with a deadline. In my former corporate life, I thrived on deadlines. But when you're trying to be creative, it's very stressful to operate under a deadline. Or at least that's what I find. I feel like things start to look forced. Okay, so that's in. Okay, now what I'm doing this in an awkward order, I know, but I want to get my closure on. And then the next thing I'm going to do is wrap my spine, because this is the piece that's going to go in the middle, and I'll trim it based on where this lands once I get it installed. So just FYI, I'm not going to put that in next because I do think I want to color block it. So I'll have a seam here and a seam here, which means I have to trim it to fit. All right, let's get that out of the field of view. Now we're ready to go ahead and install this. And when I laid things in, roughly laid things in, I was pretty happy with it being close to center, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to eyeball this. Like so. I'm going to stand it up. Okay, we're going to put glue. Oh, there's another buckle, so I'm going to sneak some glue in there before I install it. I did not see that earlier. Probably what I should have done, I didn't think of it, but you guys can do it, is glue doesn't tend to be as flexible as the tape. So you might want to consider actually adding this, using tape to install this, particularly in the areas of the hinge or the score lines, I mean. So it's something to think about. Okay. Is that gonna stay? Now the other thing you could do, if this is difficult, is you could trim these pieces so that the black, or that the score line itself is not covered. I kind of wanted to do it this way because I wanted it to be rigid. But there's pros and cons to both, I think. Okay, I think that's good. There we go. Now I'm going to turn my book over, make sure it's right side up. Make sure this is right side up, and now it's going to get installed like so. Okay. I'm being very generous with the glue. I gotta stand up for this, get a good bird's eye view. All right, I'm just gonna go roughly center. I made a mess there. Okay. And I'm pushing it all the way to the score line. I'm gonna hold that in place for a bit. I'm gonna let that dry thoroughly, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Hey everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Create, and back. I think this is probably one continuous video, but I can't remember anymore. I had given you the measurement for this spine covering, and after I laid everything in, I decided I didn't like it. It was too wide, so I actually took an inch off, and so this is 7 by 8 3/8. 7 by 8 3/8. And that way it doesn't come over onto the cover so much. Based on how I had done the rest of my layout, I'm liking that better. Okay, now also while I was away, I went ahead and laid in my magnets. So there's magnets behind this tag, and then I put 2 magnets here on the cover. I'm just going to look at it and see if it's square. Actually, I need to adjust them. I put it in like this and it worked fine, but then when I set it up on its edge, it's not attracting. So think about that when you place your magnets. I should have done that first, and I didn't. So I'm going to have to move them. They're up a little too high. And make sure you're setting it on the edge that it'll actually be displayed. I actually put mine in bookcases with the face out front to display them, but some people like to lay them flat. I usually have them on their end. So if you're going to stand it up to display it, make sure you're doing what I'm doing, which is making sure you stand it on end before you locate your magnets on the other side. Okay, let's get some tape behind them. And then I'll stand it on its end, and we'll let the magnets find their new home. Okay, now let's stand it on its end. Make sure it's flush. Hopefully. I'm having a hard time pushing them. There we go. Pushing them into place. They just didn't want to grab. I'm going to test that one more time. Perfect. Okay, that's right. I'm just burnishing it with my handy dandy tools that I have with me all the time, my fingernails. Okay, now we're ready to finally get our cover on. No, we're not. Gosh darn it. I'm really having a day, guys. We're going to put the spine in first because I think I want to have a black band between the cover and the spine, which means the spine has to go in first. And I need to add a little more tape to it, looks like. Okay, so when doing the spine, I always use tape, and the reason is tape remains flexible over time. And even the best glue over time is going to get brittle. So if it's an interactive piece, like a hinge or the spine, I'm going to use tape. If it is a stationary piece, a mat that doesn't have any flex in it, that's where I use glue. And if I had really thought that through, this would have tape on it, not glue. So tape is harder to deal with because it's so it grabs and you don't have any time to adjust. But it does remain flexible over time. I've never had score tape fail, and I've been doing this for quite some time. So some of my albums have quite a bit of age on them. So it's just something to think about. I have had other double-sided tape fail. No-name brands that I've picked up at my craft store. On some of my first albums, that's what I went budget on my tape, and I don't do that anymore. But I also didn't use very expensive paper, so I don't feel so bad about it. When I'm using graphic or some of the higher-end paper lines, I'm not going to risk losing my paper or my album over tape or adhesives. So, okay, we're going to start with the center, and then we're going to wrap around. We've done this before, so I'm just going to take off the three in the center. So I had kind of a funny layout, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. I start by laying my tape down over where I know my hinge or my score lines are going to be, because I want to make sure that the tape goes over where I know I've got a score line. And then I kind of put tape on inside and outside after that. So I place these first and then add my score tape. Now I've got wide or 3/8 inch tape for the 3 toward the center, and then I used 5/8 or 3/8 out here, so that's 5/8 and this is 3/8. And the reason I did that is I think it's Kathy Order, paper phenomenon, but I'm not sure. Had demonstrated a technique where she wrapped the spine, and by using these smaller tapes toward the end, had better luck with her paper not cracking on the spine. So I started using that technique, and I've had really good luck with it as well. I don't really understand the physics behind what's happening here. I just know that I've had success with it, so I started doing that more regularly. So that's what's going on. So now I don't like to take all the tape off, because it's going to want to grab everywhere. Start at the center, get it centered up and left, right, and up and down. Lay this down, and then you start peeling off the rest of the tape. Okay, so there you go. And in order to do this technique, you really do need to stand it up on its end. And then the other thing she does is she opens her albums about 45 degrees. And that's because you don't want it completely closed, because then when you open it up, it's going to want to buckle. And you don't want it all the way closed because, or all the way open, because if you lay it down flat and you install the paper, when you go to close your book, it's going to want to tug on there and possibly tear your paper. So there's that happy medium somewhere around 45 degrees. And of course, make sure you've got your orientation correct. Okay, I'm just checking. And I know I'm going to go off screen a little bit for you guys, or potentially, it's a big book, so that's just the way it's going to be. Okay, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to burnish that down. Now I'm going to take the tape off. I'm going to open it up a little bit more. It's a little hard to do because the pages want to stop you. And I'm going to take a strip off one side, burnish it, then go to the other side, and I'm going to alternate back and forth. Okay, this is where your pick tool comes in handy again. This one is very critical, because you are, right now I'm getting ready to place the tape right on the score line. So I'm wanting the book to be open about 45 degrees on either side, okay? And we're gonna go back on this side. Same thing. Okay, looking good. It's kind of a tedious process, but the hardest one is the one that goes right over the score line here, the hinge. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lay it down now, close my book, and then take off that last piece on both sides. Gosh darn it, I forgot to ink that. I trimmed it down an inch and I forgot to ink it. But looks like I can get it done. Oops, I got a little heavy on there. Okay. Now before I take the tape backing off on the other side, I'll ink it. I think I trimmed both sides. I did. So. Okay, and I think I've got one more piece of tape. Yeah. And then this is. And I just put the book in the resting closed position because that's how I want this to fit, right? Okay. So that looks pretty good. Pretty darn good. I can see my border's not exactly right, but I'm going to try to solve that by the piece that I lay in here. So it's pretty close. It looks closer on the front. Okay, now, now, the first thing I tried to do is it's finally time to actually install this. So I'm going to trim it down so that I have a nice, maybe not. Yeah, I tore my paper so it doesn't look very nice, does it? Eek. You know what? I'll make sure I put an embellishment over that piece. So I do want to, yeah. Okay, back to I'm going to be abundantly cautious because I cannot afford to waste any paper. I don't have any, I have paper that'll fit, but it's not the patterns I want, so. I marked it, but I can't see it. There it is. Wow. That is really hard to see. All right, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, I may measure 100 times and trim 100 times because, like I said, I can't afford to make a mistake here. I don't have any other paper to use. All right, so let's straighten this up. How do we do? Perfect. God, I love it when a plan finally comes together. Okay, guys. Moving right along. Let's get some glue on this. I'm going to be very generous with the glue because I kind of made a mess of my paper. And it's going to be a little bit bumpy because of that. But it'll work. It'll all work in the end. And I'm going to put a lot of texture on the cover anyway with embellishments, so it won't really show up. It's almost square, so I'm double checking the orientation before I lay it in. Okay, it goes this way. Me and ink today are just not getting along. Almost forgot that again, and that would have really shown up on the black. Okay, we only trimmed one side, so. Okay, here we go. You can hear all the crackling from the previous glue. Okay, guys. Oh my gosh, we're making progress. I'm going to stop here because my eyeballs need a rest. Everything's starting to look a little blurry. When we get back together, we are going to embellish the cover. And just give you a sneak peek. I think I've laid it out once before for you. This is fussy cut from the signature page. Santa's going to go here. This is from the same page, but the distribution was too far for the cover. So I fussy cut. So there's his glasses right there, right? So if I had done this, it would have, if I had cut the Christmas time out like so, it would have looked pretty much like this, and that's covering up the time. So by cutting this piece out, I can shift it over. We're not really losing much. We're losing a little bit of the clock, but his head fits there perfectly. And this is the second one I'm going to do some layering. So it just fits better on the cover. So I was able to take the two main elements of the signature page and then push them together. And then over here, I fussy cut some elements that I'm gonna layer on top of here too. So when I get back, we'll work on this together. I still got to ink all this too. Thanks. Bye. Hey everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Crate. We're going to start embellishing the cover of our album. Now, we do have a magnet closure here, and that's helping this top stay up, but I'm going to be applying pressure to adhere some of these items to the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and put something inside the book that's going to help keep it elevated so that I can press on it. And I think I've got something that looks like it might be the right width. It just happens to be a box I had on my desk. And I think it's not quite tall enough. Let's see. That helps, but it's not quite what I want. So let me try something else. What else do I have that might be taller? This is another tray that I had with my tape in it, and I think it's about the right height. Yep, that's it. Okay, so now that's going to hold everything in place while I'm trying to apply some of my design. So, as I had mentioned before, I fussy cut this out of the signature page of the collection pack, as well as this. Now, this is what it looked like there's the top of the hat, on the cover. And that scale just really wasn't going to work for the cover. I needed to bring it down some. So I fussy cut out the clock so that I can layer it like so. So basically I'm taking essentially the same image, but I'm trying to push some of the elements together so that it fits in a more pleasing manner on the cover. So I used 2 copies. So the base is the clock and then the extended clock. And then I fussy cut just the inner clock and layered it. And I actually made a mistake when I was trimming it and I cut off part of the E, but I'm gonna go ahead and lay it in as is, but really, ideally you would trim around the E, so cut around the time and include that as part of this layer. Now, between this darker yellow and this bottom piece, I put a piece of chipboard, and basically what I do is when I've got scraps of chipboard left over when I trim out my books, and I just use those to put behind to create some dimension. So I've got a piece of chipboard behind this piece. I'm going to lay the bottom piece flat on the cover, and the reason I want to have it flat is because I don't want to have anything elevated where the tag comes over to grab those magnets. Otherwise it might just create some sort of a conflict there. Okay, so that means I've got 1 layer of chipboard here. So in order for this to lay down nicely, I need to have a layer of chipboard behind Santa, but not in this area. So this area of his head, I'm going to attach directly to this clock, and then behind the balance of it, I'm going to raise it so that it's at the same level as the clock. And hopefully that makes sense. So let's go ahead and start by adding a large piece of chipboard in the bottom corner. It's hard, sorry, I keep bumping the camera. I'm going to add a large piece of chipboard here, and then I'm going to see where this is laying in and make a decision about where to put that on the clock. And again, this just happened to be a piece of chipboard that I had laying around. So now the bottom part of Santa is elevated to the same level as the yellow clock. Okay, so I know I don't want him to come over onto the T, and I don't know, and I don't want the elevated clock to interfere with the flap mechanism. So this looks like about where I'm going to put it. So that looks good. Okay. So I'm going to stand up and get a visual on it as well. So now I've also fussy cut some other elements. I fussy cut and popped the ball and this little bit of holly. Sorry, I was searching for my words. I fussy cut this out of the second page so I can layer this. And then I've got this clock that I've done that I'm going to, it just happened to be the edge of the page, that I'm going to tuck slightly behind there to get some fill. And I'm just doing this right now to get the lay of the land, so to speak. This has got some chipboard on it, and I was going to layer it on top of here. But I want to make sure whatever I do, I'm clear of the flap, as I'd mentioned before. And then I fussy cut these 3 stamps, which I will place artistically above Santa's head. I don't know how yet, but like something like that. There'll be a set of 3 stamps. And then I'm toying around with the idea of adding these Graphic 45 red roses, but I haven't figured out just what I want to do there yet. So I'm just, like I said, trying to get a sense of where I'm going to locate this clock. And really, I think that's going to be it. So I'm going to move all this stuff aside, and I'm going to go ahead and get some glue on the back of this. And this is really the first piece that you have to place because you couldn't do a complete cutout of this element because Santa's head's right here. You are going to have to figure out how to cover up that spot. So if you lay this down first, then you'll know how far in you need to put Santa's head. And then I want to make sure that my flap is not interfering with this layer here. And I'm going to torque work it until it's straight. When I say straight, the word time. There we go. That looks good. Press that in place. So I just put black cardstock between each one of these layers, just to help the edge stand out a little. I also ink the edges. So it kind of, the black cardstock gives that bottom layer some, it looks dimensional, but it's not. It's laying flat on this cover. Okay, now Santa. I did not fussy cut a black border around Santa. I thought that might be too much. A black borders. Okay, I think that's where he's going. I could have actually shifted this down a little, but I'm pretty happy with it where it's at. All right. I think that looks pretty good. So I think I want to put a small piece of chipboard behind the hat to make it level with this. And then I think I'm ready to put it down. I'm going to sit down now. I don't think I need that perspective anymore. And then this is fussy cut, and I did this, actually I'm going to move that over a little, to go right here on the edge to sort of soften this straight edge. Yeah, and it's going to go like so. And I'm going to trim off the excess once I get it placed. Looks good. Okay, before I lay it down, I'm going to go ahead and add my drum. So I've already popped this up. I'm going to add the drum, and then I'm going to trim it to match. So once I get that on, I'll show you what I mean. And I'm just going to free cut. Okay, now you can see that it's extending past the black here, so I'm just going to trim off those edges and ink them. Because it is the edge of the page. Okay, so now everything's nice and smooth. I'm going to ink it. And then I think I'm going to add a little piece of chipboard right there to the behind the top hat. Where did I? Oh, it's right in front of me. Okay, now let's see how it looks with all the layers behind it. Actually, that's too big. It needs to be only part of the top hat. Just to cut off a corner. I think that's gonna do it. The chipboard needed to be at an angle because this needs to be flush. Let's see how I did. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Yep, that's what I want. Looking good. Okay. This requires a lot of up, down before I make any final decisions. Okay, I think I like it. Okay, looks good. All right, and then I have layered this chipboard, and I think I'm gonna put it here, but I have to test it. I don't like the way it looks under there, so him and Han about that. I think it's too big. I'm missing. I should have another piece of another fussy cut, but I don't know where I put it. Shoot, I forgot. This was going to get tucked under here. I still think I can get partially behind here. So what I'm going to do is, I think, cut an angle here. Let's see if I can get it under there. I might not need to. So a lot of times when I'm doing my cover, yeah, I think I can wiggle it under there. I leave the outside, the very outside edge without glue, so you can tuck things under it easily. And then at the very end, go back and glue it down once I know I've got everything in place. So by not putting glue on the very outside edge of this, I'm able to slip something right under it. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I think I can get this in without a problem. I think if I trim over here, it'll slide right in. And give us that extra little bit of layering. A little bit more. There we go. Piece of cake. I just want to make it straight. I want the 6 at the very bottom. There we go. Looks good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and glue that into place. Originally, I had some chipboard on it, and I changed my mind. I want it flat on the base. And again, I'm leaving the outside edges open, so if I need to tuck anything under, I can achieve that easily. My dog is protecting me. Or the house. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's see what else we're gonna do. I need to find, I fussy cut more of this out. I don't know what I did with it. I can't seem to locate it at the moment. But we've got some options here to kind of go through. I think I'm liking it here because this is such a hard edge. And the edge would look okay if I butted it right up against the yellow, but I tried that and I didn't care for it. So I think I'm going to do this. And honestly, I don't know why I didn't glue this on before I put him down, because then it would have been easier to trim off the edges, but I can still do it. It just would have been a little easier. I think I was partially not completely sold on location. That must have been it. Okay. Okay, I like it. I'm actually going to glue it right in place. So much glue, too much glue. Okay, that was something else I had thought about possibly doing, but I'm not sold on it. I'm going to put some chipboard behind this, and I'm going to add it right here and then trim down the edge. That's my next step. And this one's going to be a little tedious because it's such odd sizes. looking good. And that helps soften that edge of his arm there. Okay, when that's good and dry, I'm going to come through and trim off the edge here, just with a pair of scissors, so that it's flush with the edge of the book. You want to be careful, and I'm actually making it not flush with the edge of the book, but flush with the mat, because you don't want it to hang down on the bottom at all, because when you stand it on its end, potentially these things could get snagged. So make sure you're trimming to your border. Hopefully that makes sense. That's looking good. Okay, I'm gonna take a break because I think I'm gonna fussy cut a couple more elements to add to these corners. So I'll be back soon. Okay, I have trimmed out, this came from the 8x8 collection pack, and it's just a tiny little tag that I cut out. I put a piece of chipboard behind it. I'm gonna place that on this tag. This piece, I went ahead and trimmed a little bit off the edge. It was interfering with the tag here, and I'm gonna place it right here. So let's go ahead and get these two pieces in. There we go. Okay, now I'm liking this. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in. I think it's gonna go down slightly off center, because I'm gonna add this little piece of flourish here. And just trying to decide how I want it, because I don't want to cover up too much of the words. I think I like that. It's interesting. I'll glue that in place here. And then I'm going to glue this tag down right here. You don't want that free floating. It's likely to get snagged on something. That was a little heavy-handed on the glue. There we go. So it's coming along. You can see it. It's starting to get some personality. Okay, I need to do something here. I'm not sure what. I'm going to go through all my chipboard and some of my other fussy cut items and probably put a little something here. I'm thinking about more holly, but I haven't decided. And while I'm going and doing that, I'm going to pause this so you guys aren't watching me rummage through everything. And I'll be back shortly. Okay, it looks like something blew up on my desk. This is, to me, the most time-consuming part of the projects, but I did go through all of my goodies, and I found something that I think works. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clear my field of vision so I can get focused back on the book. And what I've done is I took this from the die cuts, and this is fussy cut from, I think it's the 8x8 collection pack, but I'm honestly not... No, it's from the 12x12. So I'm going to layer this. I'm going to add this flourish here, and then I'm going to layer this right on top. And that is going to be it for the cover, at least for paper. I may add a little bit of ribbon, twine, or something like that. But that, as far as paper goes, we'll be done adding our paper. And there's a chance that I'm going to work in some graphic 45 roses. But at the moment, I don't see it. I kind of laid them in and I wasn't happy with it. It was looking too busy. So I haven't completely made up my mind there. I like the roses. The graphic 45 roses from a color perspective look good with this collection. Okay, I'm just adding it at a diagonal. Okay, I'm going to ink, I already inked it. I'm gonna raise this, so I'm gonna put some chipboard behind it, and then we're gonna put it right down there. It needs to be a little bit bigger than that, so. And then I wanna do something with my tag. I think I'm gonna hang some charms off of it, but I haven't decided. Some of the charms that come with the bundle are really cute. There is a train, which I think is so cute. And the other thing I really like is this reindeer. So I'm thinking about hanging a couple of elements off of this. But that is actually going to depend on whether or not I can find my jump rings. I was looking for them and I don't know what I've done with them. So I have to locate them. Because you'll need a couple jump rings to attach charms. So if I decide to do that, I'll just share that with you in the walkthrough. I'm not going to make it part of this video, which is already long enough. So now you guys can see the process I go through to put my covers together. It does take a little bit of time. But it's worth it. I'm going to try to tack that, though I did have some glue. I want to tack that down because I think it will get torn if you don't glue that edge down. So that's it for the cover. Let's clear all this junk out of the way so you guys can actually look at it and appreciate it. Okay, I am probably going to do something with the spine. And I forgot we hadn't laid down this piece of paper on the back, which we can now do if I can find the paper that I had set aside for this. Oh, I hope I didn't trim into it on accident, because I don't have any more of this paper. So I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to find my piece of paper, hopefully, and we'll get that laid in. If not, I'm going to have to come up with another solution, and I'll be back soon. Bye. Okay, so when I changed the size of the spine, I cut an inch off, or ½ inch on the front and ½ inch off the back. I had already trimmed this piece out, and that's why it doesn't fit anymore. And I don't have any more paper that I can use. So I'm going to use my sticker to fill this gap and pull this red back in. So I'm not happy with that solution, but it's gonna work. Certainly not what I had originally intended. So that was not very smart. Not smart. It happens. I'm just gonna tack this on just ever so slightly. So that I can get it trimmed. Okay. And I am going to install the black piece first and then come back and add my sticker. And it doesn't have to be a sticker. You could use a red strip of anything that's just pulling that red back in. Luckily, it's the back, not the front. Sorry about that. I dropped my glue side down. That is so maddening. But I just have to live with it. Sometimes when I think I'm getting fatigued, it's best to just stop. So you don't make dumb mistakes like that. So I think I mentioned it before. I'm behind schedule, and I guess it's getting the best of me. I need to slow down and calm down. All right, so now we're just going to center this sticker here to cover up. Oh, wait a second. I want it to go this way. That's the top, this is the bottom. So I want to be able to read from top to bottom. Not that it matters that much, but there we go. Problem solved. It'll bother me, but that's because I know what I had originally designed. No one else will ever notice it. Okay, I'm probably going to add some elements to the back here just to sort of soften this edge and sort of bring your eye away from the tag itself. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I might layer in some chipboard, some things like that. Haven't decided. I'm going to fuss with this offline, and I'm actually going to force myself to break because I'm making mistakes. So I'm going to stop here, and when I get back, we will wrap up this album. But essentially, it's pretty much done. I'll probably add an embellishment here too. Definitely like a chipboard piece. So I'll find one that the color looks the best on, and that's the end of the cover. Sorry about that issue that I had with the paper, but there is not a lot of excess paper in this project, like I had mentioned before. So you definitely want to set aside what you're going to cover your book with first, and get it trimmed out so you know what's left over. Otherwise, you're going to wind up like me, where you're color blocking on the back, which was... I don't mind doing some color blocking, but I didn't mean to have that extra ½ inch gap. So when I changed the size of the spine, that kind of threw me for a loop. I forgot I had already trimmed out those other papers. So, like I said, go through your 12 by 12s, set aside the 2 or 3 sheets that you're going to use for the cover, and the two sheets that you're going to use for the inside liners, because both of those need to be 10 3/8 wide, which means you can't really use an 8 by 8. And you know, it's 8½ inches, so you need 8 3/8 if you're going to have a 16th inch border. And again, your 8 by 8 pack isn't going to cover it. So do that first, set that aside. It'll save you some frustration in the long term. And that's it for now. I'll be back soon with a walkthrough.